The night of your Indiana win, you said that delegates are going to conclude that you're the candidate who can best defeat Donald Trump, who we now know will be the Republican nominee, because your campaign is generating the enthusiasm, the excitement, and the voter turnout needed to beat him. But even though you won Indiana, voter turnout there was down 50%.
You're right.
From 2008.
You're right.
And it's been down in state after state on the Democratic side.
Not in state after state. In a number of states, remember, very often we're being compared to Obama's historical campaign of 2008.
That's the comparison I'm making.
Right, where the voter turnout was off the charts.
Yeah.
And yet there are, as I recall, 5 or 6 states where the voter turnout in this election was actually higher than Obama's. But you're quite right. In Pennsylvania, it was a disaster. And in Indiana, it was very low. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that a number of independents ended up going into the Republican camp, which scares me very much. And I think I would repeat that as in the general election, we have a shot to win those independents back.
There is an argument going on within Democratic circles, because I've been making this case basically publicly that the Democrats' voter turnout compared to 2008 is something that Democrats should probably worry about. I've heard from other people inside the Democratic establishment that, doesn't matter. The fact that Republicans are turning out in record numbers now in the primaries and Democrats aren't has no bearing on the general election. I feel like it's a sign of worry that neither you nor Secretary Clinton have been able to turn out enough voter turnout to compete with what happened in 2008.
I think it is a sign of worry, but I would indicate that we're up against Obama's historic, unprecedented campaign in 2008, which brought out unbelievable turnouts. But yet we have done in 5 or 6 states actually exceeded those turnouts. But here is what the challenge is. In 2014, nobody voted. 63% of the people didn't vote. Republicans won a landslide victory. That will happen again in this general election. Our job is to create excitement, to create energy, to get working people who might not have voted in the past, young people who might not have voted, into the political process. That's what we have to do. If there is a large voter turnout on election night, you can turn off the TV because the Democratic candidate will have won. If there's a low voter turnout, I worry about the outcome. And one of the reasons why I think I am the stronger candidate is that we have been generating a significant amount of interest among young people and working people, people who traditionally may not have been voting.
So even if the raw numbers aren't greater than we saw in 2008, you think the types of voters that are turning out, it's a new reach for the Democratic Party?
I believe so. And I got to say this. Yeah. As we go into the Democratic Convention, the Democratic Party has got to open its doors to those young people, to those working people who now do not feel much allegiance to the Democratic Party. And that means the Democratic Party has got to be very clear about which side it is on. Is it going to be on the side of Wall Street? Is it going to be on the side of the drug companies? Or is it prepared to stand with working families and low-income people and demand a government that represents all of us and not just the 1%? When you do that, I believe, when you have that agenda, you create excitement at the base.
When I look at your overall diagnosis of the big problem in the United States, and when I've heard you explain why it is you decided to run. I mean, you are the most popular senator in America, according to your constituents. They polled every state in the country, and nobody likes their senator more than Vermont likes you. And you have a Senate seat for life in Vermont if you wanted it. And when I've heard you explain why you're running for president, it is this big problem of the economic divide, this new gilded age that we're in, concentration of wealth at the top. If your political revolution comes to fruition and you get to make the changes that you have talked about on trade, on taxes, on the banks, on minimum wage, on healthcare, everything, how long does that plan take to fix the problem as you see it?
I think we can do it a lot quicker than many people think. The key to that is to rally the American people to stand up and fight back. And have a willingness to take on the 1% today that has extraordinary power. But can we break up the large banks on Wall Street and create a financial system that works for small and medium-sized businesses fairly quickly? Yeah, I think we can. Can we make public colleges and universities tuition free? Yeah, I think we can. Can we rebuild our crumbling infrastructure? Yeah, we can do that. We have to do that by eliminating these outrageous corporate loopholes that now exist and help the states and municipalities rebuild their water systems and their wastewater plants. Yeah, we can do that. Can we come up with a tax proposal which says to large corporations, you can't simply put your profits in the Cayman Islands And in Bermuda, you are going to have to start paying your fair share of taxes. Yes, I think we can do it. Now, the trick to all of this thing is that it's not going to be done just inside the Beltway. It's not going to be it's not going to occur with me talking to Paul Ryan. It's going to happen when millions of people are actively engaged in the political process and determine that America is not the country, should not be the country, where almost all new wealth and income goes to the top 1% and the middle class continues to decline. Now, can we do that? Well, that's tough. I don't know. That's hard. That's hard stuff. But I think we can. I think the American people are sick and tired of establishment politics and economics. And by the way, a little bit tired of corporate media as well. They want real changes in this country. And I think as President of the United States, we can ignite those changes.
What's the solution to corporate media?
I think we have got to think about ways that the Democratic Party, for a start, starts funding the equivalent of Fox television. Number two, I think the pressure has got to be put on media to say that, you know what, maybe as a nation, the American people are entitled to hear real discussions on real issues. You tell me, you're in the media, what percentage of media discussion in this campaign is about process? Who's going to win in West Virginia? How many delegates does Hillary Clinton have? What dumb thing did Donald Trump say yesterday, rather than, why are we the only country in the industrialized world not to guarantee health care to all people? How much discussion have you heard on TV about the fact that the top 0.1% now owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%? That's the kind of discussion we need, and the American people need to be engaged in that. So we have got to demand of corporate media, and that's going to be hard because this is against their own best interest. NBC is owned by who?
Comcast, our overlords.
All right, Comcast is not one of the most popular corporations in America, right? All right, et cetera, et cetera. And I think the American people are going to have to say to NBC and ABC and CBS and CNN, you know what? Forget the political gossip. Politics is not a soap opera. Talk about the real damn issues facing this country. I was in McDowell County, Virginia, West Virginia, yesterday. People's male life expectancy there is 18 years less than it is in Fairfax, Virginia. 18 years. People's male life expectancy is the equivalent of Guatemala. Do you think it should be happening in America? I don't think so. But we don't discuss those issues. So I would hope that the corporate media understands they have a responsibility to our democracy to allow serious discussion on serious issues, not look at politics just as a horse race.
As a candidate, you have raised those issues consistently,
I have.
over and over and over again.
Without much success, I must say.
Well, plenty of success. I mean, you've raised $250 million, right? You've
No, but I mean in terms of the corporate media, I'm not.
Every time you get into the corporate media, the words that you
Well,
want
I
to say.
try to jump in.
Here
People
we go.
want to talk to me. I know sometimes people think it's weird. Some commentator at CNN will ask me a question. Of course, I talk about something else. Because I think it is important that we do focus on the issues facing the working families of this country.
And clearly, what I mean to say about that is that you have brought that focus to those issues as much as you can through the vehicle
Yes,
of this presidency.
we've tried.
But when you talk about how things get fixed in the long run,
Yeah.
you over and over and over again talk about not just yourself and what you want to do, but the movement and the people and people getting engaged.
Yes.
There is only a very small club of people who have turned insurgent, interesting presidential candidacies into ongoing movements that then had an ongoing effort. President Obama tried, and it really didn't happen with Organizing for America. The best example that I know of is actually on the right, is Pat Robertson, who turned his presidential campaign into the Christian Coalition, which ended up having a dramatic effect on the Republican Party. It made them get very hardline on social issues for a very long time, and they're reaping the benefit in the states right now.
Yes.
Do you have that kind of, whether or not you win the nomination, win the presidency, do you have that kind of an organizing model in mind?
Well, obviously, it would be a lot easier if I were elected president. I was just in Indiana last week, where United Technologies threw 2,100 workers out on the street, moving to Mexico, where they're going to pay people $3 an hour, after giving their former CEO a $171 million severance package. I would love, as president of the United States, to be on the picket line with the United Steelworkers. That's never happened in American history. And I think I would love to be on the picket line with the Communication Workers of America, the CWA, who are taking on the greed of Verizon, okay? And a president can galvanize the American people against the economic injustices, the racial injustices that are currently existing in America. That's what I would love to do. Now, if I do not get elected president, are we going to continue the movement and work with our allies? Absolutely we will.
Will you form an overt organization of some
It's
kind?
too early to say, because right now my mind is on the next 9 primaries and caucus.
Super interesting, right? I mean, he's definitely really invested in the idea of an ongoing movement, ongoing involvement by the people he has motivated by his campaign. But he's, at this point, not working on anything like that right now, at least not yet. But he would love to walk picket lines as a president. He says he wants the Democratic Party to fund a Democratic equivalent to Fox News. Senator Sanders also turns out to have an active plan in place to stop something else that is otherwise churning right on the edge of our politics right now, and that's next.
I will do everything in my power to make sure that that absurd, hateful proposal never occurs.